On April 1st, 2014, two young women walked into the cloud forest of Panama. They carried the kind of things tourists bring on a simple day hike: a camera, two phones, sunglasses, a water bottle, a little cash. That was it. They were not dressed for a survival expedition. They were not planning to sleep outside. They were not walking into the jungle to disappear. But by sunset, their families would stop hearing from them. And 1 week later, in the middle of the jungle darkness, their camera would suddenly wake up. Flash, flash, flash. Roughly 90 photographs, taken in the rain, taken in almost total blackness, taken by someone who may have been injured, lost, terrified, or trying to leave behind a message no one has ever fully understood. This is the story of Mia Hart and Elena Vale. And the most disturbing part is not what we know. It is what the evidence almost tells us. Mia was 21. Elena was 22. They were from Europe, and like so many young travelers, they had come to Panama looking for something more meaningful than a vacation. They wanted to learn Spanish. They wanted to volunteer. They wanted to experience another country, not just pass through it. By late March, they arrived in Boquete, a mountain town in western Panama, surrounded by coffee farms, rivers, volcano slopes, and dense green cloud forest. It is beautiful there, and beauty can make danger look polite. On April 1st, the two women decided to hike the El Pianista Trail. At first, nothing seemed strange. Their camera captured ordinary travel photos: bright daylight, jungle paths, trees closing overhead. The kind of pictures people take when they believe they will be home by dinner. They climbed toward the Mirador, the viewpoint at the top of the trail. And from there, the world divides. On one side is the way back to Boquete. On the other side, the land drops into a deeper, wilder forest. Most hikers turn around. Mia and Elena did not. Their later daytime photos suggest they continued beyond the viewpoint, down the other side of the divide. And this is the first quiet moment in the case where the air changes. No scream, no chase, no visible threat, just two young women walking past the point where the familiar trail should have ended. Hours later, the phones tell us something had gone wrong. At 4:39 p.m., Mia's iPhone attempted to call emergency services. At 4:51 p.m., Elena's Samsung tried too. Neither call connected. No signal. That detail is easy to read too quickly. But stop for a second. Imagine what it means. You are in a foreign country. The light is fading. The trail no longer feels like a trail. Something has happened that is serious enough for both of you to call for help. And the phone gives you nothing. No voice, no operator, no confirmation that anyone knows you are still alive. After that first attempt, the jungle had them. The next morning, the women missed an appointment with a local guide. That was the first alarm outside the forest. Searches began. Their families flew to Panama. Dogs, police, volunteers, and rescue teams moved through the mountains. But the forest did not give them back. Days passed, and inside those days, the phones continued to tell a silent story. The devices were turned on and off at intervals, maybe to search for signal, maybe to preserve battery, maybe because whoever was holding them still believed somehow that a signal might appear. One phone eventually died. The other was powered on multiple times. Then came one of the strangest details in the entire case. After several days, the correct PIN was no longer entered. That does not prove anything by itself. It could mean panic. It could mean injury. It could mean one woman was trying to use the other woman's phone. It could mean exhaustion so deep that numbers no longer made sense. But in a case built from fragments, that detail feels like a handprint on glass. Someone was still there. Someone was still trying. But something had changed. Then, for days, the camera took no photographs, no images of shelter, no farewell messages, no clear picture of an injury, no photograph of the path back, no face turned toward the lens saying, "This is where we are." Just silence. Until April 8th. In the middle of the night, the Canon camera began firing. Flash, 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 roughly 90 photographs. Most of them show almost nothing. Black jungle, rain streaks, wet leaves, the pale shine of rocks caught for a fraction of a second. But some images show details that have haunted people for years. A branch with bits of paper or plastic attached to it. A wet rock surface. What appears to be belongings laid out in the dark. And in one frame, the back of a head, hair lit harshly by the flash. No explanation came with the pictures. Were they using the flash as a signal? Were they trying to scare off an animal? Were they documenting their location? Were they leaving clues for searchers? Or was the camera in the hands of someone who knew these images would one day be found? That is where this case becomes dangerous for storytellers, because the mind wants a villain. It wants a shape in the dark. It wants the 90 photos to be a code. But the evidence refuses to become one clean story. 10 weeks after the disappearance, a local woman found Elena's blue backpack near a riverbank. Inside were the phones, the camera, sunglasses, cash, a water bottle, other personal items. The money was still there, and that fact complicated every simple theory. If this was robbery, why leave the cash? If this was only an accident, how did the backpack travel so far and remain in relatively good condition? If the women were swept by water, why did some objects survive together while the remains were scattered? After the backpack was found, searchers discovered more. Mia's denim shorts, a boot with a foot inside, a pelvis, a rib. Other bones spread along the river area. DNA confirmed the remains belonged to Mia and Elena, but only a fraction of them were ever recovered. The official explanation leaned toward a tragic accident. The women became lost, possibly fell near a ravine or cliff, and died in the jungle. A later forensic review considered foul play unlikely, pointing toward a fall and the harsh terrain as a plausible cause. And perhaps that is exactly what happened. Perhaps there was no stranger in the trees, no hidden attacker, no elaborate plot, just a wrong turn, a sudden injury, a dying phone, rain, cold, darkness, and two people trying to survive in a place that did not care how loved they were. But even that explanation leaves one terrible question. What happened between the first emergency call and the last photograph? Because those 7 days are the heart of the story. 7 days in which one or both women may have been alive. 7 days in which the phones were used carefully, almost strategically. 7 days before the camera finally burst into light. To understand the horror of this case, you have to forget the theories for a moment. Forget the internet maps. Forget the arguments. Forget the endless debates over timestamps and pixels. Picture only this. You are lost in a jungle after sunset. The trees erase the sky. The trail behind you no longer looks like a trail. Every direction sounds like water. Your phone has no signal. Your friend is beside you, and neither of you wants to say out loud what both of you are thinking. Tomorrow people will look for you, but they may look in the wrong places. They may shout your names into a forest that folds sound into itself. They may pass close enough that, in another version of the story, you might have heard them. And then the night comes again, and again, and again. By the time the camera flashes, it is no longer a travel camera. It is a flare, a witness, maybe a tool, maybe a confession from the dark. Each photograph lasts less than a second, but together, they have kept this case alive for more than a decade. Because they do not show us what happened. They show us the edge of it, the edge of panic, the edge of survival, the edge of a place where two young women vanished from daylight and reappeared only as fragments, a backpack, a phone log, a few bones, and 90 photographs that seem to ask the same question every time the flash goes off. Are you seeing this? Are you finally seeing where we were? Mia Hart and Elena Vale entered the El Pianista Trail on April 1st, 2014. Their final days remain unresolved. The official answer may be accident. The public imagination may never stop looking for something darker. But the most honest ending is also the most chilling. Somewhere beyond the viewpoint, the story changed. And the only witness left behind was a camera, blinking into the jungle, again and again and again, long after anyone should have been taking pictures.